Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Virgil Prime once again, and this is installment 2 of my CommandHelper tutorial. Last time I showed you how to set up your workspace and how to get Notepad++ with the Obsidian color coding, and so now I'm going to show you a little bit about what files come with CommandHelper and why we won't be using them. So, I think I mentioned before, I don't remember, it was like a few hours ago. I don't have a very long memory span. I think I had you clear out main.ms, yes I did, and config.txt, because we're not really going to be using those things. Here's why. Because I like things organized. And initially I didn't have it all organized, and it made it a pain when I wanted to organize things. So here's what we're going to do. When we make a new plugin or a new group, let's say you want to make a quote-unquote essentials for your server, so you want to make your little group of commands. I keep them separated in local packages. Now, local packages is kind of where you would stick a plugin for CommandHelper. So for our first plugin, we're going to make a Hello World plugin. Alright, so just a Hello World folder, or whatever you want to name it, it doesn't really matter. Alright, any files that are the right format in this directory and local packages are going to get read in. So in here, I'm going to make a new text document. I'm going to title it commands. The commands one, you can actually name it whatever you want, but I'll just make it commands. .msa. MS is method script, and method script is the programming language that CommandHelper uses. So yes I do. I'm going to copy it because it's easier than making a new one, and the A in MSA is for alias, so a method script alias file is what we just made. Now the second one, no capitals, main.ms. Yes. And copy it one more time. Oops. Copy, paste. And I'm going to call it auto include.ms. Alright. So, what do these three folders do? Well, the first one, commands.msa, is pretty obvious. This is where you're going to create commands. The second is main.ms. Main gets run when the server starts up and when CommandHelper gets reloaded. Now, when you're in game, there's a very simple command you can type to reload CommandHelper. It won't reload any other plugin. And it's really helpful because it doesn't cause any problems unless you have code where it causes problems. It won't cause any problems in terms of any other plugins. You can reload your code over and over again, so if you're trying to debug, it's a really easy way to find errors. But every time you reload aliases, this is going to go off. Anything that's in main.ms is going to get triggered. Auto include lets you define your own functions. Now, you don't know much about functions yet because I haven't explained it, so we're not going to get into that for a while. I'm going to really quickly open up Minecraft, and I think we're on a 1.6 server, so I'm not going to run 1.7 Minecraft. Forge, I think it's 1.6. Alright. So, and while I'm doing that, I'm also going to start the tutorial. I'm going to start my server launcher. I've been up all night doing videos. It's exciting. And I'm going to go back to my local package. Alright. Enabling CommandHelper. Alright, so this is still starting up. If I go into multiplayer, you'll see I have 127.0.0.1. That is my local IP address. That is always going to be your local IP. So when that's up, I can connect, And there you go, see? Virgil Prime logged in with entity ID blah blah blah, world blah 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 blah. Alright, so here I am. Lagging a little bit because I am recording. And if I type /reload aliases, or alias, alias or aliases, it doesn't matter which, nothing happens, really. I don't have a permissions plugin on here, so there we go. 0 aliases is defined because I don't have any, haven't made any yet, and no errors, so that's a good thing. That's a good start, right? It's always nice when there's no problems. Alright, so as I mentioned, anything in main.ms is run when you call reload aliases. So let's just jump right in. I'm just going to type some code in here, and I'm not going to explain it, but you can probably follow along. It's going to be pretty simple, and you should understand what's going on. Alright, message. Alright, MSG, message, that makes sense. Hello, world. Save. And reload aliases. Right. See, I'm dumb. I make mistakes too. Because who did I just message? Nobody. Here we go. Broadcast. There we go. Let's try that one. Hello world. There it is. Hello, hello. Alright, so, this is a function. And functions look like this. Alright, so, younger listeners, cover your ears, because I'm going to tell you what I call this is, I call this the function and its vagina. Because, I mean, it is a vagina. It looks like a vagina. And what do you do with a vagina is you stick stuff in it. So that's what we have here. Functions perform a number of operations on whatever you stick in them. So, for instance, broadcast performs a number of functions on what I stuck in here is a string, hello world. So there's different kinds of data that we can deal with. A string looks like this. It has text and numbers and special characters wrapped in single quotes. And when you type in a string, you know you've done good if it turns orange with our language file CommandHelper. No, I do not want to make changes to this computer. Go away. So a function that is recognized and that is in our language file will show up as green. So we know that broadcast is a function, but function, ironically, is not a function. So there's something to think about. Now, another thing we might have to do is we might have to store some information for later. For instance, let's say that I want to store this string and mess with it a little bit later on. Alright, so how I can do this is I can add a few lines, and this is a variable. It starts with @ symbol, and then you'll see that the text that comes directly after it turns blue. Alright, so to assign anything to a variable, you remember variables from math. X is X, Y is Y. In this case, VAR is VAR. Alright, so whatever I want, I can use cats. Or whatever I want for the name here, but I'm going to use var because it's a variable. Equals. 1 equals is how you set a value. So, cats. Alright, so now var equals cats. If I go down here and broadcast var, save. Guess what happens? Reload aliases, cats. Alright, so that worked perfectly. At var is cats, and yeah. So, but we can do a few other things with these variables. We can put in numbers. Numbers don't have to have quotes around them because it's not a string. It's what's called an integer. Oops. 12. We can have arrays, which is a bunch of values jammed into one little space. We can have associative arrays, which in other coding languages is called a hash map. But we're not going to get into that right now because that's kind of some advanced stuff. We just want to get down right now integers, maybe floats or doubles, and strings. So we don't really need to worry about anything more advanced than that right now. I can calculate stuff, because that's what a computer is, right? Just a really fancy calculator. If I can see my keyboard, the symbol for multiplication is the asterisk. You should have learned that in math at some point. Oops. Alright, 24, that worked. Let's try something a little bit crazier. Alright, so we have all these functions, and as before, I think I pointed out where you find the functions is at the CommandHelper website, and I have the staged API saved here. If not, just type in into a search bar CommandHelper and browse around the website until you find staged API. Actually, I'll show you where it's at. That's made of me to do. So, CommandHelper. And staged API is under future/next version. We're using the future version. It's the future! So, there's the staged API. And you can use any number of these to do any number of crazy fun things. So I want to get the player's name. Player. Well, there's not going to be a player, once again, because this happens whenever the server loads. So this is a server-wide thing. There's no player that we're handling. So, really quick, I'm going to, once again, make something and not explain this time what I'm doing. Alrighty then. So a few things we'll recognize is the at symbol makes this a variable called @e, and then we're not touching it. This, of course, is a function, player, and what we have not stuck anything in it. So we'll see what that does. And message, and we did stick stuff in this one, and we stuck a string, but it's got a little bit of extra crap in there, so we'll see what happens. Alright, so when I reload aliases, we get nothing because I didn't save. Reload aliases, alright, no 24, and now I'm going to sign in. Oops, local. I forget where I am. Logging in. Hello, Virgil Prime, and welcome to my tutorial. Alright, so that worked perfectly. Alright, so I'll break it down for you. By the way, these spaces and indentations really don't matter. If I wanted to, at least with CommandHelper, I could do this. And I could make one long string, but it would be really, really, really ugly. So event binding is another really powerful feature in CommandHelper. And it's important if you want to do anything besides just commands. So this is how you do it. We're using a function called bind. you can see if I highlight one of these, or one end of the parentheses, it goes all the way over there. We're using an event called player join, player underscore join, and that can be found on CommandHelper stage event API. Around here somewhere. HIJK player join. There it is. It's got a bunch of information. We don't need to deal with it at this moment. So when a player joins, the first little spot here is reserved. The things that you stick in a function are called arguments, and they affect how it works. So, for instance, in message, there's only one argument, and it is whatever is going to be messaged to the player at hand. So it doesn't accept something like a player to direct it to. So we'd have to use a different function if we wanted to direct it to a specific player. Bind takes 5 or 6 functions, or 5 or 6 arguments. The first one is always going to be the event that we're binding. The second one is always going to be an option, and the option has to do with some advanced stuff that I don't even use. So I always leave it and put it as null. I can't leave it blank, and I can't forget about it, because if I omit this part, well, actually, if I omit this part, it's still going to be null. But if I omit both of them, then all of a sudden @e is in its space. So when the computer goes, okay, well, what is part 2 of this bind? What is the second argument? It's going to find this, and it's going to get really confused because that doesn't fit what it wants. So I'm going to leave null so that it knows there's nothing there. The third argument is a pre-filter. So if we wanted to, we could filter out only a specific player. But that's a little bit more complicated. We're not dealing with that right now. @e is a variable name, but I haven't said anything to it. So what does that maybe tell you? Well, bind has all this crazy information. Any bind, any event has all this crazy information attached to it. When, for instance, a player joins, you have the following information at your fingertips. You have the player's name, the world that they're logging into, the default join message, which is mutable, by the way. That's what this means. The fact that it's over in this column, we can change it, and whether or not it's the first login. So, all of this information gets thrown into my code right here. So I didn't have to write equals crazy stuff. It does that automatically. It just needed a variable name for me to give it so that it knows that @e, when I call it later, that's what it wants. So I could have put @cats if I wanted to there, but I didn't. I put @e. Doesn't matter because I'm not using it, but once again, I have to have it there or there's going to be a problem because this is what goes in the 4th slot. Again, or I guess I haven't mentioned this, they are separated by commas. So I bring a space down, and this is where all my code goes. So on bind, the fifth argument is the code message. Hello. Alright, so this is where it gets confusing, because I've actually got a string and another string, and what it's going to automatically do, because I don't have any actual commas in here, I could have them in here because that's part of the string now, and it's not going to try to translate that. But what I have here is this player by itself returns the name of the player that set off the event, which in this case is player join. So I joined, so it's my name, Virgil Prime. These periods, and again, this is probably going to seem a little confusing, periods that are not quoted serve to remove a space. So had I just left it that way without the periods there, it would have worked just fine. It would have had a double space. And I could have done that and it would have looked just normal. But good syntax, leave a space in because it's part of the text, and then put the period on either side of that because it's good syntax. It's good practice. Hello, space, player, start up the quote again, and welcome to my tutorial. So that worked pretty well. And you can see it worked pretty well. Now, I don't see, this should be highlighting. Null never highlights, but this should be highlighting. And I think I need to do some work on my language file so that that highlights, because it should be turning, I think, blue. But not a problem, I'll play with that later. And if none of this makes sense to you, that's okay. We're going to go over this all again. I just wanted to show you basically that the vagina does not have to be small. It can be stretched and it can be contorted into strange shapes, and in some cases it can be lines and lines and lines and lines deep, and you can throw all kinds of stuff. Now, two things. When you're writing some longer code later on, it's going to start to look like either a D or a capital B. Alright, so let me explain. Let's say that I wanted some more impressive stuff to happen. So, bind player join. I want to broadcast. No. What do I want to do? I want to I guess broadcast. We've gone over it. Cast. Enter, enter. Right? And I want to broadcast, and I'll put in my quote here. Little random. Alright, so basically, if I had some more complex code, this might get even bigger. And this hump will get bigger and bigger and bigger depending on what I stick in it. So you get this D shape. The B shape comes from this. Alright, if. Now, the more powerful things in coding involve logic, involve if statements, and comparisons. So let's say that I wanted to get the player's name, and let's see, if, alright, player, we already mentioned the fact that that returns the player's name. So if player equals equals, alright, so I said earlier that 1 equals assigns a value, 2 equals compares a value. So if you're comparing values, you always use 2 equal signs, and you'll get used to that pretty quick. Virtual prime, because that's me. Oops. Prime. Comma. Oops, whoops. Nope, nope, I don't need to use a comma. So if the player that we're dealing with is Virgil prime, okay, ready, enter, tab, left curly brace, enter, enter, right curly brace, else, left curly brace, enter, enter, right curly brace. Your mind just got blown because this looks really weird, but it makes sense. If this is true, then this. Otherwise, this. Alright, so broadcast. Oops. I'm going to pretend that I am a certain Korean dictator. Welcome back. Great leader. Alright. And in case of not being Virgil Prime, tab. Hello and welcome to tutorial. Alright, so if the player is me, then we're going to broadcast welcome back, great leader. Otherwise, we're going to broadcast hello and welcome to tutorial. And as you can see, if it got a little bit bigger, you'd see it a little easier, but we make a B shape. I'm just using tabs to space it out, and it just makes it easier for your brain to wrap around as you're making pages and pages of code. In other languages, it's not okay to use tabs, but in this one it is. It's not a problem. So that's what I meant by the B thing. Now let's make sure this works, because this is the first time we've used an if statement, right? So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to reload aliases. Alright, log out, log in. Welcome back, great leader. Sweet. So that worked. Now let's say, what if I'm not, though? So what if my comparison is looking for Virgil Prim, my evil lost twin, Virgil Prim. Saved. And reload aliases. Oops. There we go. Disconnect. Reconnect. And now, see, I'm not Virgil Prim, so it says, hello and welcome to tutorial, because player no longer equals whatever that is. So that is how if statements work. Now, really, what the code sees when this runs, because it makes this check, and this is going to return one of two things, just because of this equal signs right here. It's either going to return true or false. And those words don't get quoted because we're not dealing with a string here. We're dealing with what's called a Boolean value. It's a true or false value. Think of it as binary, 1 or 0. But the symbols for it are the word true or the word false. So, no capitals. If true, and this will work just the same. Reload aliases. Whoops. Alright. Disconnect. Welcome back, great leader. Gee, just the same, because now there's really not a comparison. It's just if. If doesn't compare anything. If just wants to know true or false. We rely on the equals sign to, or something else, to make a comparison. False. And some functions even return true or false, so we'll get into that in just a moment. But first, reload aliases. To prove that this works, hello and welcome to tutorial. Alright, so we now understand how if statements work. True or false, so that's a Boolean value. We understand how string values work. We understand how integer values work, right? That's a whole number. Float or a double is a value, a numerical value that has a decimal point. So like 12.6 or something like that. I'm not actually sure what the difference between a double and a float is. I'll find that out later. I feel a little embarrassed that I don't know that. So right now, this all works. I'm just going to leave it there, but I'm going to close this. Actually, I'm going to copy this. Copy, close. Alright. I'm going to open Hello World, commands. Paste in my code. It will do absolutely nothing. So, You can bind things in a command so that it binds something when you run a command, but I'm not going to do that. I just want the code to run. I don't care if I don't want to bind an event. So if player equals Virgil prime. Alright, so let's write a command. Alright, commands work a little bit differently. Method script alias files work a little bit differently because they don't take straight code. They take code in little blocks, and the little blocks look like this. Alright, so the important part though, or the part that makes it different, is what triggers this block of code, and that's a command. So my command is going to be /greet equals, and then it's going to be this block of code. Alright, so let's save that. And I'm going to reload aliases. Greet. Welcome back, great leader. See, that works. Alright, so we have made our first command, and it took all of about 2 minutes. So that's pretty impressive. We can do a lot more with this, obviously, but you've made your first plugin, so go buy a soda or alcohol if you're of age. Pat yourself on the back. When we come back, and I don't know when this is going to be because I'm getting tired. I don't know. We'll try to do something a little bit more fun. Maybe we'll spawn some mobs or make them not catch fire or something. I don't know. I'll be taking suggestions in the comments, so leave some comments, please. And thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of these tutorials. And from the bottom of my heart, have a wonderful day.